This is Jeremy Lemming with ACSblog, and we're with Jeff Clements, General Counsel of Free Speech for People. And can you tell us a little bit, first of all, what Free Speech for People is all about, and also talk a little bit about the letter that Free Speech for People and People for the American Way sent to congressional leaders today?
Sure, happy to do that, Jeremy, and thank you for having me here at the American Constitution Society. Free Speech for People was formed and launched on the day last January when the Supreme Court decided Citizens United versus the FEC. On that day, as most folks know, the Supreme Court struck down the restrictions on corporate funding of electioneering activities in certain windows under the McCain-Feingold law, holding that corporations effectively had the same rights as people under the First Amendment and the same rights under the Buckley case, which equated money with speech. Therefore, corporations could use their money to affect our elections. And it was really an unprecedented decision when one thinks about the root of BICRA. The Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act goes back to 1907 and Theodore Roosevelt. We've had a century of regulation of corporate money in politics because we've recognized the dangers of that. Well, the Supreme Court swept that all aside in the 5-4 decision in Citizens United. Free Speech for People launched, led by Voter Action, a fair elections and democracy organization, and it's a coalition of groups including the American Independent Business Alliance, U.S. PIRG, Public Citizen, and others. And its goals, our goals at Free Speech for People are just what it sounds. Free speech is for people. It's a basic, the First Amendment is a basic part of what makes self-government work, and self-government is government of the people. So we are focused on overturning Citizens United, and we're doing that the way Americans have always done that when we disagree with the Supreme Court. Article 5 gives us the avenue to express that disagreement by amending the Constitution.
And amending the Constitution is a better answer than any kind of legislative reaction to Citizens United?
They're not exclusive of each other. They're not mutually exclusive. I think it is the only answer that gets at the root issue. We've had apparently this century-long, and even before that, tradition in America that corporations are economic entities. They're created by state law. We can regulate them. To depart from that, as the Supreme Court has done, is a fundamental transformative break in how we've governed ourselves for 2 centuries. So it goes to the core issue is a constitutional one. It's not that there is something wrong with McCain-Feingold or there's legislative tweaking that can fix this problem. We have a deeply divided court, 5-4, holding that we, the people, can't regulate corporate money in politics. Congress knows that. The Congress can't disobey the Supreme Court, so Congress presumably will respect the Supreme Court and try to work within those guidelines that laid down in Citizens United and others about what they can regulate. And our belief at Free Speech for People and beyond, if you look at the polling, which we've done and I'd be happy to talk about, it's almost an incredible consensus across Republicans, Independents, Democrats disagree with that view of the majority of the court.
And Free Speech for People and some other public interest groups today sent a letter to congressional leaders urging support or advancement of a constitutional amendment. Can you tell me a little bit about this letter?
Yeah, I sure can, Jeremy. It's an exciting development in the campaign, and I think a very interesting one for all Americans and lawyers who are following this issue. What happened today was over 50 law professors from law schools across the country and former lawyers who've served in government, 7 former state attorneys general, including Frank Bellotti, one of the deans of the attorneys generals, and Grant Woods, a Republican from Arizona. This is a bipartisan letter of 50 law professors and these former public servants saying not only is Citizens United fundamentally at odds with the First Amendment as we and they understand it, but it is a deep danger to our democracy and to self-government, and that the letter urges Congress to examine a constitutional amendment and to have that kind of bipartisan support I think is very telling, and I think it says that this is something we really have to look very hard at now.